How's it going, guys? It's Cole from See-Through Panel showing off Tombs short story collection by Junji Ito, published by Viz, as always, in this nice hardcover, retailing for $25 US. Before we get too deep into it, I am not going to be spoiling anything with my words, but I'm going to be flipping through the art, showing you guys what I just saw. I just finished reading this, so if you're worried about seeing something that could be a spoiler for you, maybe read the book first, come back after, we can talk about it. As always, nice hardcover. I love that Junji Ito is like one of the only manga creators that gets their English work put in hardcovers consistently. It is a short story collection, as I said, as are most of his works. This one specifically, I think, has a really nice variety of stories. Before I get into showing you the book, I'll start flipping through it, but there's two kind of modes that Junji Ito has, and one of them, and there is a lot of overlap in this, one of them is, this is so silly and ridiculous, it makes you laugh, and there are horrifying visuals to go along with it. But in general, it's just so ridiculous. It's not going to keep you up at night. You probably aren't going to look over your shoulder. It's just some gross out panels. And then he has his more rare stories, where it really is that horrific, suspenseful, more serious tone that actually kind of does horrify you in a completely different way, not just shock value. And I think there's a nice mix in here. I think there's one story I particularly loved that was very Lovecraftian. Here's the table of contents. So Tombs is the titular story. I really loved... Actually, I think I liked the second half of this just way more. Washed Ashore probably being my favorite. The Tunnel was awesome. And they're all great, but I think the latter half is probably my favorite. So the story, I'm not going to go through all of them, but I'll tell you about Tombs. The story is... our main character is going into a town and discovers that when someone dies in this town, a tomb pops up exactly where they died. And it is made of their body. And that's kind of the supernatural conceit, but the more suspenseful psychological horror side is that our main character does something bad and is kind of fighting guilt and covering his tracks for the entirety of the story. And has just more and more, it breaks down more and more as time goes on, and obviously that kind of collides with the supernatural setting. Then we have, do we go straight? We have Clubhouse. I'm not going to go over every plot. This one I thought was kind of silly. It's also rather short, which is fine by me. Fell kind of flat for me. As far as like art and tone and everything, it was spot on for Junji Ito. I still had a lot of fun with it. It's just not like up there in my top stories by him. Then we have Slug Girl, which was super silly, and I'm definitely down for those silly Junji Ito stories. I'll spoil this one. This girl's tongue is turning into a slug, and it ends exactly how you think it's gonna end. And the visuals are just nasty, and a lot of like sounds playing in your head. Yeah, a lot of squelching happening in the brain when you read Junji Ito. Then we have The Window Next Door. I thought was great, fairly grounded. I mean, it looks ridiculous, but in terms of a Junji Ito story, it's quite grounded. It's just a very creepy old woman. Washed Ashore. Oh, this awesome panel at the very end of Window Next Door is crazy. It's a lot... The meaning of it's a lot different when you see it, or when you read the story. Washed Ashore, Lovecraftian. The sea monster washes ashore, and it's just kind of a mystery as to what it is, how it got there, how it relates to the backstories of our characters. Really, really beautiful art. This one was a lot more subtle, I thought, than most of the other ones, and has a nice ending. By that I mean it has a nice Lovecraftian ending. Strange Tale of the Tunnel. Oh, here's one thing. It doesn't have to do with this page. I don't know why I flipped back. This is the only Junji Ito book, at least that I've noticed, that had several translation problems, just missing words entirely, where the sentence didn't make sense, or just some minor, problems with the English. But it doesn't really matter. Just pointing that out because it's really rare, and whoever does the translations usually tends to do a good job. I'm not going to look to the front of the book to see their name when I just gave them shit, because they normally do a great job. This tunnel story is awesome. I don't want to spoil too much about that. Read that one, definitely, if you're going to read any of them, I think. Yeah, I don't really have a ton more to say about this. The final story was really interesting because you don't see a lot of blood in Junji Ito. Normally it's like horrific characters or not horrific actions you're seeing. This one, out the gate, is called The Bloody Story of Shiro Suna. Has a bunch of blood and it looks like a decapitated head on the cover. And so I knew it was going to be different, but there is blood in his stories, don't get me wrong. He's done some gory stuff, but it's just not typical to see like as much blood on the page as you're going to see in this. Like just blood streaming down people's faces, pools of blood. A really cool conceit about the town and what... a lot of locational horror about why this town is the way it is, and it's not good. In general, I think this is a good one to start Junji Ito on. I always kind of like talk about these in my videos. If you're going to start reading Junji Ito, either just... there's pretty much two ways. There's no wrong way to do it. If you want something long form, just go with Uzumaki or Gyo. I honestly prefer Gyo. I know a lot of people think Uzumaki is like the best horror manga ever, but read a long form one. If you want something more digestible and short and like silly, they're all going to be a little silly, but these are really nice because it's kind of it's a collection of short stories. It's just really easy to pick up and put down, and there's no long form storytelling happening. I always prefer a short story collection to a... not always. On the whole, on average, I think I'd rather be reading a short story collection, so I really prefer these. This was a great image. But, yeah, there's really no wrong way to start reading Junji Ito. I would just recommend doing it and then getting addicted and owning all of his books, because they're great. But got a haul coming probably early next week. Finally got my package from September. So I may just hold it over and do an October-September haul. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching, guys. Peace.